let's talk about what's happened, the latest. Limited information, but what do we do know?
Yeah, it does look like the Ukrainian counteroffensive has at least started. The UK MOD has said that they have made significant progress in some areas of the front, but actually that they've also met pretty robust Russian defences in others. As ever, the Ukrainians are being absolutely silent. If you recall, President Zelensky said Russia will feel our offensive when it actually starts. So I think we're seeing the opening overtures at the moment. Interestingly, President Putin has broken with normal protocol. He said, no, it's definitely started. Our Russian defences are holding up really well and we're inflicting massive casualties on the Ukrainian forces. As ever, there's an information war going on here. What's interesting, the Russian military bloggers that are often provide a little bit more of a balanced view, they are significantly less positive about the Russian performance so far. If we look, though, wider, there's also a whole selection of Russian missile and drone attacks that have been conducted across the whole country. If we look up, and also the Russian Air Force, for the first time, has been pretty active over the southeast of the country, trying to support its troops. In Kharkiv, up to the north there were reports of 10 drone strikes, 1 person killed, 3 people injured in that strike. In the Poltava region, there's a military airfield there that apparently was subjected to Russian Russian missile strikes and drone strikes, but apparently no casualties there. Ukrainians claim that they've shot down 20 of the 35 drones and 2 of the 8 missile attacks, but inevitably some get through. And down near you, Odessa is probably where the worst of the damage appears to have been done overnight. There were 3 killed down there in Odessa with a whole series of drone and missile attacks. The damage included 27 people wounded, 2 children and, unfortunately, 1 pregnant woman. And some of the footage that we're seeing from some of the devastation caused not only by strikes, but also some of the falling wreckage.
It's curious, isn't it? Because Russia is saying, look, we have managed to inflict damage onto Western weaponry. What can we make of that? We take it with a pinch of salt.
Well, part of the Russian announcement, they've been very on the front foot of announcing this stuff, that obviously they were very worried about the impact of Western main battle tanks. So the Russians have released video footage and some stills about some of this damage that they've apparently inflicted on Leopard 2 tanks. First look, as ever with these imageries, they're also very grainy. But if I look over here and look at the actual square here, you can see this is the fire apparently on the tank. I know it's grainy, but fire doesn't appear in squares, and it does. And if you look at the image carefully, it does look as if it's almost been superimposed. So I'm not entirely sure what this is part of the information war that's going on. Unfortunately, Leopard 2s, the Ukraine had created this air of invincibility about Western battle tanks, and of course they are vulnerable. They're just a lot more capable than most of the rest of the tanks available. Now, Ukraine are actually operating on a broad front here. They're testing the Russian defences. Once they find a point of weakness, of course, they'll use the tanks to punch through. But in the meantime, any force on the offence is suffering 3 times the casualties of those on the defence. So we can expect to see quite a significant uptick in the number of Ukrainian casualties. Inevitably, the West hopes that this Ukrainian offensive will be effective and push the Russians back. It might well do, but it's worth a cautionary note. Russia is a major superpower. It's had many months to prepare its defences, and there's no doubt that in any type of war, it can be unpredictable. So it's going to be a very interesting next few days and weeks.
So what of Ukraine, then? What will they be looking to achieve with this offensive, an all-out win?
I think there's 3 answers to that. The first answer is they mustn't lose. I know that might sound counterproductive, but if they throw themselves at the Russians and don't make any breakthroughs at all, that will not only cause massive casualties to the Ukrainians, it will significantly undermine the West's confidence, it'll undermine Zelensky's morale and the people, but also Russian morale will increase and they'll potentially do a counterattack. The second thing they'll want to do is to try to make sure that the David that is Ukraine can push back the Goliath that is Russia and actually push back some of the Russian forces and make at least some steady progress. Final sort of ambition, which is a sort of stretched ambition, is that they do some real breakthrough and gain some momentum with the punch through. Almost certainly the main area will be around the east of Zaporizhia, trying to push to the coast, and that would compromise the Russian forces, force them back into Crimea. But also they're moving around Bakhmut at the moment, and it's quite possible the Ukrainians will end up encircling Bakhmut. Whatever, we can expect some pretty fierce fighting along the front line in the coming days and weeks. The fortunes will veer and haul. The one certainty is the casualty figures are going to rise, and significantly.